task is to create HTML and CSS to build the division structure of a web page from the plan found on the task sheet. The page must display correctly in any browser. It is quite a complicated layout, and we will need to add at least one container div to the structure to make it work more efficiently. Divs that do not float but are horizontally adjacent to divs that do float must have suitable margin left and or margin right that sit under the floating divs that they are adjacent to. We'll come to that in later videos. The remainder of this video will deal with the creation of the HTML page and the container div listed on the layout plan and its associated CSS. The second video in the series will add the HTML and CSS for the divs that span the whole width of the container div, namely menu, information and footer. The third video will add the HTML and CSS for the header and logo divs that appear alongside each other at the top of the layout. Finally, the last video will deal with creating the HTML and CSS for the 4 remaining divs: left content, center content, right content, and right content too. So, to begin, open the HTML template file you created in Task 1 in Notepad++ and edit the appropriate tags located inside the head of the document. This means give it a title and change the description meta tag. Most importantly, edit the href to the style sheet in the link tag. Give it a meaningful name, in this case WC05.CSS. This will need to be the name of the style sheet we create later. Between the body and end body tags, add a div tag with ID set as container. The divs listed in the plan must be given the correct name. It is a requirement that you use effective tabbing to demonstrate the scope of each element in the HTML. Each element at the same level should start the same distance in, and nested objects should always be indented. It's good practice to use comments in all your work, and when working with many divs, it can become confusing as to which end div tag belongs with which div tag. So it can be helpful but not essential to add a comment next to the end div tag as shown. Make sure that there is some placeholder text in this div, and as for all the divs created in this task, we'll use the div name as the placeholder. Save this HTML file as WC05.htm. Ensure the correct file type is selected in the Save dialog. Let's create the styles for the container div. Then we're going to create a new file in Notepad++. Add a CSS comment line to the top of the document, remembering that CSS comments are found between a /* and a */. As a minimum, put the name of the file on this line and give yourself credit as the author of the file. Set the language in the style sheet by using the menu item Language, C, CSS. Notepad++ now recognises that the file you are creating is a style sheet and will check for the correct syntax. Save this file as a CSS file with the file name set in the HTML file, that is WC05.CSS. Now we have two files open, it's useful to split the screen and have them both visible. To do this, right-click on the tab of the style sheet and choose Move to Other View in the contextual menu. To return to a single file view, repeat the process. You can add a body style that sets the background colour to something other than white. This is not a requirement, but colours will be used to distinguish between adjacent divs and show that the layout plan has been achieved, so a background colour other than plain white will help. Now, while there are a whole host of named colours available to use in CSS, there's no guarantee that a colour like blanched almond will render the same in different browsers. If you want specific colours, it's best practice to use their hex codes. This being said, well, black and white are safe colours to use. Set the styles for the div with ID equals container by adding a new line which reads #container. Then add a pair of curly brackets which indicate the scope of the styles for the named div. Now, while it's not necessary putting both brackets in when you start to create the styles for a tag, it is good practice as it means that you're less likely to find yourself missing a curly bracket somewhere in your CSS. It's also mandatory, as for HTML, to use good indentation to demonstrate the scope of each style element. According to the layout plan, the container div must be 960 pixels wide and appear centered on the page. The CSS required to achieve this requires setting the width attribute and using the margin left and margin right attributes set to auto. A comment can be added to alert anyone who cares to look at the source, say you in 18 months' time, as to why these margins are set like this. One day you will realise how valuable this is. Finally, set the background colour, taking care to spell it like an American, to something that will make it stand out from the background colour of the whole page. For this exercise though, keep your colours light as the font colour is black. Now, before viewing the page in a browser, it's wise to click the Save All icon at the top of the Notepad++ screen so that any changes you made to either file are saved. Viewing this page in a browser should display the placeholder container at the top of the page, and the div it is in should be the correct colour. The next video will add the whole width divs to the container div.